Facebook, how's everyone going today in the fit family? I've just recovered from Spartan Canberra yesterday, and I've got a special treat for you all today. I'm going to be having an interview with Josh Perizzolo, who was the winner of Australia's Toughest Mudder last week, in an event that I was also at. I can tell you the conditions were certainly tough, and just going to go over a couple of different things with him. So if you are watching live, give me a hashtag live. If you're watching a hashtag replay, give me a hashtag replay if you're watching a replay. And if you do want to ask any questions for Josh, just make sure you log in and let me know that you're watching. In the link to the description, you can log in and just like Mel has, she's let me know she's watching live. And if you let me know that you're watching, I can bring you up here. So, hey Mel, how are you today? So what I'm going to do, guys, is just call Josh real quick and bring him on. So just give me one sec. Hey, buddy.
G'day, what's going on?
Not much, mate. Just give me one sec. What I'm going to do is just merge these two together. There we go. How are you today, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. You know, get a bit done on the weekend.
Yeah, that's the way. How did you pull up after last weekend?
Not too bad. Probably done probably 3 reps this week.
Yeah.
And then I've done a bit of cross training, a bit of riding and stuff. But otherwise, yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, cool.
I was thinking about heading to Canberra for the sprint on the weekend.
Yep.
But time and money and a bit of soreness didn't really permit it. So,
Yep.
that happens. But anyway.
Yeah, I feel you, man. It was a short one. I went down there yesterday. I had a couple of clients run a man, but it was a fun little event. But sometimes you got to listen to the body, don't you? So if anyone doesn't know why Josh is sore, he won the Australia's Toughest Mudder last week. An event down in Melbourne that I was also at, and man, you ran 50 miles in 10 hours 45 minutes. So I think you told me at that point it was looking like nobody could catch you, so you didn't head back out. So tell me about it, man. How'd it go?
Well, going into it, when I signed up at the start of the year, my first instinct was to do 50 miles. I looked at the qualification for World Toughest Mudder and it was at 40 miles, so I thought if I planned to go beyond that, I could always fall back. So I guess the plan from the get-go was 50 miles, and that was sort of factored in my plan as much as I could. And my pit crew had told me, how far ahead I was, and we did the calculations, and I did have time for another lap, and I think I would have done it fairly comfortably. But just didn't really need to. I think I ended up coming in on my 10th before the guy came in second for his 9th.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely flying. I know you had some really good pace while I saw you there. And how much you sort of said that you talk about the race strategy. How much of that do you strictly set in place and stick to, or do you just sort of set a plan and then just roll with the punches?
Well, my strategy towards all racing that I do is just about me. You know what I mean? Like, I control what I can control. I don't worry about anybody else.
Yep.
So I guess it was just about, how far I think I could travel in, per lap or the time I could do each lap in. And then I just factored it from there. So, the first lap we had no obstacles. So obviously that's going to be way quicker than, the rest of the laps. So once I came in for the second, I said to my pit crew, they were writing down my lap times.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was planning to do, after I sat down, I think it was, the second one was about 50 minutes.
Yep.
And then I was factoring in an additional 5 minutes per lap after that.
Yeah, cool.
And so deterioration over time just means that you'd have, you'd progressively get slower.
Yep.
I guess over time, but I think my average lap times from start to finish line were pretty much bang on an hour. after lap 3. So,
Yeah,
I was moving fairly consistently, and that was the plan. I was spending my 5 or 10 minutes in the pit just refueling and whatever, and then just heading out for another hour, and then, take it one lap at a time. That was the basic plan,
Yeah, cool, man. Cool. And I've just had Stephanie let me know that the audio is a little bit sketchy. I think we had a little bit echoey. Okay, what I might try and do is put myself on headphones. Can you hear me okay there, mate?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Hopefully that solves that. We've got another couple of people jumping on. Sasha and Kerry all saying they're live, saying hello. So if anyone has any questions, guys, feel free to jump in and we will cover them at the end. And so you're a Deniliquin boy.
Deniliquin, mate.
Boy from
all the way out in the country.
Yeah, boy from the bush, the town that's famous for the Ute Muster every year.
That's right.
So, mate, how does a boy from the bush get into obstacle racing? How did that happen?
So I'm a PDHPE teacher, and I moved out here in 2014. And basically before then, I played team sports. So I was a soccer player, did a bit of OzTag, that sort of stuff. Came to Denny, and Denny's notorious for their AFL.
Yeah.
So, soccer wasn't really an option out here. And I think my first Spartan race I did was with a mate back from, I grew up in Tamworth, again, part of the country.
Yep.
We did a Spartan in Picton, and it was only a sprint. We did it before his wedding as a bit of a motivation to lose a heap of weight and stuff.
Yep.
He lost about 30 kilos before his wedding, like big boy.
Wow.
And then I sort of got a taste for it then, and I thought, this is something that, I could do fairly well. And then my second race was an Ultra Beast down in Melbourne. I think it was the end of 2015, maybe.
So you went straight from a 5 or 7 kilometre sprint straight into what probably would have been a 42 kilometre Ultra Beast.
Yeah, and I mean, my running up until then was minimal. Like, I did a bit of running, cross country running as a kid and stuff, and had a little bit of success. But I mean, in the longer stuff, I hadn't really done much, but that's just the type of person I am. I throw myself in the deep end of stuff and then figure it out. So,
yeah, mate, I've definitely seen that. I've definitely seen you throw yourself in, and
but my first actual OCR was I don't know if you remember one called Tough Bloke Challenge.
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
So that was up in Appin near Wollongong, and I did that. Must have been 2012 or 2013, so it was fairly new sport in Australia then. And, the gun went off at the start of the day, and as you do on one of your first races, you sign up for the elite wave.
Yep.
And, ran the course. I think it was about 8Ks or something. Crossed the line, and one of my friends who was there with me said, you should have tried to catch that bloke in front of you. I said, why is that? And he said, he came third. So in my first race, I'd come fourth, and I was like, geez,
Yeah, cool.
This might be something I could do. So, I mean, that sort of started it. And then, I figured out that Spartan race was a thing, and, there was longer distances and stuff. And then it just sort of went on from there.
Yeah, cool. So obviously you had a little bit of a natural aptitude for it. How do you find coming out of, say, starting in a team sport and moving into what is pretty much an individual sport?
Yeah, I guess the biggest challenge is it's all on you. You know what I mean? Like, in a team sport, you've got different people around you. You do your little bit for the team, but at the end of the day, if the team doesn't come together, then everyone cops that. Whereas in obstacle course racing, it's just you and the course, and there's no one else to blame apart from you. If you're not prepared, or you don't run the weight you should, or your nutrition's not right, it's all on you. So I guess that's probably the biggest challenge. And then the second thing is probably, I guess, the motivation to train, with it just being yourself as well. You don't have set times where you're training with the team and you've got to be there or you get cut. So, I mean, accountability is a huge thing in an individual context as well, I suppose. Yeah,
for sure. And Sasha's just said that was also her first race. I think she's talking about nice. Tough Bloke, saying so cold. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was there a skip bin with a fence that you had to go under, and it was freezing?
Yeah. And from memory, the year that I did it, you were cold at the start line and you went straight into it. And I remember the next kilometre after that, just not even breathing. Like I was just trying to get my breath back. It was pretty nasty.
Yep. Yeah, I've certainly had a couple of races where you've got cold dunks and it just takes the breath out of you and you sort of have to run to get the legs moving again. So, yeah, cool, man. And what's next for you? I've seen you, since I've been in the sport. I've seen you just climbing up the ranks, and every single year you seem to be coming back fitter and faster. And obviously with Toughest Mudder is the first big one that I've seen you win. But I saw you at the 24-hour enduro back in June, right on Lockie's heels.
He's still too good for me.
What's that, mate?
He's still too good for me.
Yeah. Well, mate, you're rounding him up, and it's not that he's getting any slower. You're getting faster, mate. I think he broke his record this year as well. He ran 15. So as he's getting quicker, you're catching him. So where do you want to go? What's next?
I think next year I'll be factoring in something overseas. So I've now qualified for the contender status at World's Toughest if I want to go next year. Yep. Also looking at OCR Worlds, whether I go there, whether it's Spartan World Champs. I've just got to sort of sit down. My next big challenge now is Bright, so I'm doing Bright Ultra.
Cool.
So that's been, a plan from the start of the year. I think after that I'll sit down and look at where to next.
Yep.
I haven't had too much time to really think about what I want to work on as much as, improving, I guess. But, because I had Raw Challenge where I, had a bit of a situation where I cut underneath my chin and got a concussion as well. Yep. So between there and Toughest, I was just thinking about that. And then between Toughest and Bright, I'm just thinking about that. So I tend to take it in sort of training blocks. Sure. And then once that's done, I'll start to look at next year. But I think I'll factor in something overseas next year. Yeah,
cool, man. Cool. So, yeah, that was an amazing event, the 12-hour enduro at Raw. I think it was about 5 weeks ago now, with the awesome finish between Lockie and Liam. And it was huge. Mate, I can only imagine how awesome it would have been if you were in that mix, because I imagine you would have been right with them as well. So
yeah, bit of a shame, but these things happen, and
mate, it sure does.
Yeah, like 4 or 5 years in the sport now, and that's the only thing, touch wood, that's happened. So just keep moving from there.
Yeah, cool. Tell us about your pre-race ritual. Everyone seems to have their own little thing that they do. How nervous do you get?
I don't get very nervous. I suppose I just stay pretty relaxed, and like I've got a series of things that I do, and I suppose to a lot of people I probably look pretty serious before a race. Like, I'm doing set things at set times, but it's mostly just around food. So I'll eat, a meal about 2 hours out. I'll have a banana and something else about an hour out. I'll then have my caffeine just before I start, and obviously getting my gear ready on the way. But apart from that, there's nothing too crazy. Like, I just keep it the same all the time.
Yep. Stick to what works.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, particularly if you're racing a Spartan or something where you're starting at 7 a.m, you don't want to have something upset your stomach that's different or whatever. So I just keep it very basic.
Yep.
Even in the week leading up to it, I don't change anything about nutrition. I probably focus a bit more on hydration, making sure I'm hydrated.
Sure.
But apart from that, I don't change my meals or anything like that from normal. I'd like to think I'd eat pretty healthy anyway. So I don't, I might limit some little treats, in the weeks leading up to it to get into the best shape I can. But yeah, most of the time I just keep it pretty simple. Yeah,
cool. Do you have a standard pre-race meal? I know the night before I usually have a decent feed of pasta. Is there anything pre-race or what about post-race? Is there a go-to?
It depends. Like pre-race, like most of the time I'm travelling, obviously from Deniliquin, I'm minimum 3 hours to a race. Mm-hmm. So the night before, you're probably, somewhere that you're not familiar, close to your accommodation or whatever. If I can, I'll just go for something like steak and veg, something pretty simple. Post-race, I don't mind a burger and some sweet potato fries. That's probably the go-to.
I'm with you, mate. I love a burger.
Probably, close second would be a whole pizza to myself, I guess.
You tend to be a little bit less disciplined the day after, or straight after the race, don't
you? But just whatever I feel like, and often, if I can, I like to catch up with a few people after the race and go for a meal with them as well. So it just depends, but burger and fries would be the number one, I think.
Yeah, cool. And what does your standard training week look like? What does it usually look like? So obviously it gets a little bit mixed up around events, but
so firstly, I reckon one of the most important things is I do a long run pretty much every Sunday. That can be anywhere between an hour up to 4, 5, 6 hours, depending on what stage of training I'm in. And that's just super easy. Like I literally just put my heart rate display on my watch and just go for time. I don't worry about pace. I don't worry about, anything else. So it's just spending time basically zone 2. So sub 145 heart rate, just long and slow. On a Saturday, I'll do a sort of an OCR simulation. So I've got a couple of sandbags and that sort of stuff.
So you set up a little sort of 5K circuit or certain stations and
So generally some sort of strength component, then doing a lap and then coming back just to sort of simulate working strength and then running fast. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Friday's generally like a mobility or an easier day. Thursday and Tuesdays are generally my hard work days, so it could be a tempo run or some sort of intervals or hill work. And then Mondays and Wednesdays are easy run and then strength.
Yeah, cool.
So
cool. And you said Monday is a mobility focus. Do you find after your larger events that you sort of shift into more of a rehab sort of recovery type? I know I've started to do a lot more yoga this year, just with the event load that I'm doing, and I find that it's certainly not helping my running too much, but I'm not picking up the little niggling injuries just as much. So what's your recovery look like?
I've sort of, in the past 12 months, I've shifted my thoughts around sort of mobility work. I'm notorious for having problematic hips. I was born with internally rotated femurs, which give me issues down the chain. And I sort of thought for a long time that I just had to release everything. But I've been working with a guy on the Central Coast, Glenn Phipps, and he's been helping me with getting mobility through strength. So, releasing what's tight, but then actually providing strength to it, because things that can be tight are tight as a protective mechanism. So working on improving range through developing strength in certain areas. So, it used to just be like, laying down on a mobility ball and releasing something and then releasing something else. But if you're not addressing the root cause of the problem, it's just going to come back. You know what I mean? So
100%.
And then after an event, you have a tendency to want to rest, but my body reacts best to just continuing moving. So, I mean, going for a long walk with the dog is far more beneficial for muscle soreness and that sort of thing than sitting down on a mobility ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So blood flow is good. So just keep the blood flowing, but work low intensity as well.
So get into more of the active recovery, and that's where I say, do what you would normally do, just scale it right back. So
that's right. And I mean, it just happened this week that I'm training a group of students at the moment to the Great Victorian Bike Ride, which is, I think it's 600 Ks over 8 days or something. And we did an 80K ride on Wednesday, and it was super easy, because I was traveling at the pace of the kids, but it was just enough to just get my muscles working, and, it wasn't heavy load on the body, and I felt amazing after it, because it was just low intensity for long periods of time. So, and everybody responds differently to a different stimulus as well. So that's just what I found works for me.
Cool. And when I was running at Bright last year, at the doing the trifecta, I think I had a pair of full length 2x use skins on the bottom with nothing underneath. And I know coming down the mountain, I actually tore my my skin's in the middle. So
Yeah,
I traumatized a few people climbing behind me in the nets and stuff like that. What's your worst race fail that you can think of? What's the absolute craziest thing that's happened to you on the course?
Well, it'd have to be what happened at Raw the other week.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
yeah, so slipping five, I ended up doing 5 stitches in the chin, mild concussion, and they thought I'd fractured my scapula.
Oh shit.
But after scans, I'd just done some soft tissue.
Okay.
So thankfully, I sort of stayed off it for a bit, and it came good. But also last year at Bright, so I was doing the ultra,
Yeah.
and I was wearing a pair of 2x used as well that were fairly old because you don't want to wear your good ones.
Yeah.
And I've bent down to pick up an Atlas stone and just ripped the crotch straight out on lap 1.
Yeah, I actually think that's when I did mine, picking up an Atlas stone as well.
Yeah. And I ran away from that, and you just hear a rip and you think, oh, it's fine. So I was running away. I was like, things are quite breezy, and I wear shorts over the top, some
courtesies.
Some courtesy shorts. But I was like, oh, it's a bit breezy, and yeah, I'd torn it straight out. And then after then, it just got worse and worse. I think it ended up with a hole, that sort of size by the end of the race.
Yep.
Which made for some pretty horrendous chafe. But anyway.
Yeah. Just don't post a picture of yourself applying dry glide, mate. You get banned.
We've learned. I don't
And mate, what do you think? What do you think it is about OCR, or what is it that makes you continue to push your boundaries like you do?
I guess I've been a fairly driven person in basically anything that I've ever done. So I mean, whether it be in my career, whether it be in when I played soccer, anything like that. So I just put my mind to stuff and then figure the rest out later. You know what I mean? So my first really bad experience with OCR was in 2016. I signed up to do enduro with a mate. So I meant to go 2-person team. Mm-hmm. And he rang me a week out and he said, I can't race, I've got stress fractures. So he'd given himself shin splints.
Yep.
And me being me, I was like, 24 hours on your own can't be too hard. Like, I've trained to do 12. So I was like, I'll just go out and see what I can do.
Yep.
Sort of a similar situation with a lot of people last weekend. I ended up with, I had compression top and I had one frog skin top.
Yep.
And then I just had compression legs, and that was the year it got to -5 degrees out there.
Yep.
And I just it must have been 1:30 in the morning. I think I was on lap 7, and I was just done. Like, I came in, I was so cold, I was delirious.
Yep.
Ended up calling it there because it was just really bad. And then that was the end of my race that year. Mm-hmm. But then I was like, next year I'm going to do the full 24 hours, and I'm going to,
Yeah.
So I mean, that's probably the moment where I really decided that I would train and, go for that. So I guess enduro each year has been my benchmark of, what I want to do.
Yeah.
And each year I've improved. So I think that year I did 65 Ks. The next year I did 75 miles. Then I did 90 miles, and this year I got 100 miles.
Yeah.
So I mean,
which is mental.
Yeah. So it's just like, I guess in the back of my mind, that's my benchmark.
Yeah.
And that's where I keep saying I want to do more.
Yeah. Well, I know at sorry to cut in. I know at Toughest, World's Toughest, they've got a prize for the 125 miles. So
yeah,
if they're awarding it, somebody's getting it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. No, cool, man. And that sort of tees into one of the questions that Alana asked in the group a little bit earlier, which is the best ways to stay warm during long cold events. And you've just said then it got to -4 or 5 in the middle of the night, and it just ends your race. I know I was at Toughest last week. Wasn't prepared for the cold, and it's a very good way to make yourself miserable out there. And it's when you're moving, it's not too bad in my experience. It's when you've got a couple of laps under your belt and you start to get just a little bit slower, and you just can't keep that body temp as high. So what's your go-to for staying warm during long cold events?
It's just being over prepared, I guess. Like, I use frog skins to layer in cold races, so I've just got 2 tops, 2 bottoms, boots, gloves, and a hoodie as well.
Cool.
And then like a spray jacket windbreaker for the top. So, I mean, that could maybe get me through that -5, -10 maybe. I don't know how cold it would need to be for me to use that, but I'll just keep layering up until, I'm okay. So I guess, that's the option. At toughest, I started with just compression tops and bottoms. I went out on lap 3 and I didn't put anything else on, but I came in from lap 3 like not freezing cold, but I was cold.
Yeah.
And then I took off the compression top and put a frog skin on, and I got I think a lap later, I got my bleg mitts, and I had the hood on the frog skin as well. So I ran the rest of the race with that.
Yeah.
That seemed to be enough, but as you said, I was moving consistently and I was moving fast.
Yeah.
There was certainly times in the lap where, I could have been warmer, but it was generally after we went through, I think Leap of Faith was like the 3rd sort of water thing in a row.
Yep, which is basically Leap of Faith, guys, is a water obstacle where you've got to jump and grab a hanging net, and then you, and correct me if I'm wrong, then you climb up and there's a pole that you slide down. So you've got to basically nail this first jump, otherwise you're going to get wet. And I assume later in the race when things are getting a little bit tighter, it's probably getting harder and harder to make that jump.
Yeah, and I mean, that was in a valley as well, and then after that you had a bit of a climb up to the back of the course, and the wind coming up that hill by 2-3 a.m. was freezing. It was cold, and I think I ended up walking that hill for the last sort of 4 laps, I think. And by the time you got to the top of the hill, you needed to run again because you were getting cold.
Yep.
So, in the back of my mind, when I was getting cold, I was like, I just need to run.
Yep.
I just need to keep running.
Yep.
Otherwise, the option would have been then I would have, because I had just the frog skin top, I would have gone for the bottoms.
Sure.
See how I went with that, then another top, then another bottom. So that's just my general plan. But and another thing, like I had warm fluids as well. So when I'd come in for the pits, I just had like my normal gel. I use Tailwind normally.
Yep.
That they just had put that in with warm water. So you're taking some warm stuff, and then at some times when it was probably after lap 5 or 6, I had warm water. I was just pouring down the wetsuit top just to stay.
Wow.
So you're at least starting the lap warm.
Yep.
Because if you're not starting the lap warm, you're going to come in cold. So.
Yep.
Yeah, and that seemed to work well. But I think, the main thing would be being over-prepared. So having more than enough is better than not having enough.
Yep. Cool. And another question asked by Jeremy yesterday was ice bath recovery. So he said, how long do you stay in? How long do you wait? Are you a fan of ice baths? I've done it once or twice. I don't tend to do it much. How do you feel about them?
I used to only use it probably once a week after my longer stuff. It gets quite expensive buying ice all the time if you don't have anything like that around.
Yeah, I ride a Harley, so it's a bit of a pain in the ass, mate.
Yeah, I definitely used it on the leading up to Enduro. So after my long run every week, I'd go to the service station, a couple of bags of ice bath, and I would do 5 minutes in and then 3 minutes out in a warm shower.
5 minutes is toasty.
So I'd probably do that 4 or 5 times, and that was good. Lately, I went and bought a big chest freezer, so I've got that in my backyard, and I just stay in there for time. So at the moment,
so there's not actually ice in there. You just turn the freezer on.
Yeah, well, I filled it with water, so it's 3/4 full of water, and then just the top freezes over.
Yep.
And then that stays pretty cold for about a week.
Yeah. Cool.
So I use that at the moment. I'll probably get in there 3 or 4 times a week.
Okay.
And for 10 minutes at a time.
That's actually, I've not heard of anyone doing that with a chest freezer. Actually having it set up like that. That's
you getting around doing it.
Yeah. Cool.
Like I know Chris Woolley's one. I know Liam McKenzie does as well. And I just thought I'd give it a go.
Yeah. And if you're looking where those guys are finishing on podiums, it's probably worth adopting if you.
That's right.
How much of a difference do you notice in the recovery, do you think?
I don't know whether it's psychological or whether it's, and it probably doesn't matter. If it's making you feel better, it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
And probably one reason why I wasn't as cold as other people last weekend is because I've been doing this regularly as well.
Yeah, you're definitely used to it.
The days basically every day I finish a shower with a 2-minute cold shower as well.
Yeah, okay.
You know, and it's one of those things when the cold water comes over you, it takes your breath away, but then you've got to control your breathing and control your body, I guess.
Yep.
You know, so it's that initial shock, but then being able to control it. So,
Yep.
You know, as I said, I'm not huge on, I don't know what the benefits are. I haven't looked at all the scientific research, but if you feel that it's making a difference, then it probably is.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's placebo, whether it's whatever.
And I've seen they've done like blind trials with things that are placebos, telling you you're going to feel better and you're going to be able to train harder on this stuff, and they're actually not giving these people anything, and they notice a difference in like the training, how much weight they can push. So you know that mind over matter is a real thing. If it's not doing you harm and you think it's doing you good, do it.
Yeah, and that whole like meditation, mindfulness, that sort of movement as well. I've been using that type of stuff for mindset, you know, because last weekend out there, it's a lot about your mind as well as your body.
Mate,
it's just
100%.
Not the fittest, strongest, fastest person. It's about who can stay on course and keep moving their fastest. Do you know what I mean?
Yep. Definitely, mate. I know because I stopped 3.5 hours in because just didn't have it here, and your mindset will trump everything else. It doesn't matter how fit and fast you are. If you're not here, you're nowhere. And
it's not about it's not about getting rid of negative thoughts. It's about dealing with them in the right way. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So when I was feeling tired, when I was feeling sore, it's like, I acknowledge that that's what I feel like because I'm out here doing this. The only way I'm getting off the course is I'm finishing this race. Yeah. So I might as well push as hard as I can. You know what I mean? So,
and is that your sort of main coping mechanism when you're out there? Because it is just you against yourself, and you are going to learn some serious shit about yourself when you're 12 hours into a race. Is there a go-to coping mechanism?
Well, I guess just sort of what I alluded to there. Like you just acknowledge how you're feeling.
Cool.
Like I'm feeling particularly bad, or particularly flat right now. And one thing I did with my pit crew, each time I came in, I told them how I felt as well.
Cool.
Like, geez, that lap felt really good, or, oh, geez, that was really bad. Like, I can't remember which lap it was. It might have been lap 8 or 9. And I was like, that just felt dreadful. Like, I didn't move that slow. It was just a push the whole time. Yep. And like, oh, what's up? And I was like, I just feel like I've got nothing in the tank. Eat this, drink this, whatever, see how you go this lap. And I actually felt a lot better. So whether it's because I offloaded that on someone or, but telling people how you're feeling as well, talking to people out on course and that sort of stuff always helps as well.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Like acknowledging how you feel and then trying to shift your focus around that is important.
Just keep your mind off. I find running with people, like I'm always talking to volleys and talking to people, I find that goes a long way. So I don't want to hold you up too long. We haven't got any questions that I can see. The last one is 2 big bits of advice for anyone who is looking to get into this sport, or maybe they're already in it and they want to see how far they can go. What's the two biggest pieces of advice if you were starting fresh tomorrow, knowing what you know now?
I think the way I do things is I set goals and then I figure out how to get there later. So obviously make sure that, they're achievable for me and they're smart, like the acronym, specific, measurable, achievable, recorded and time. You know what I mean? But I just set something that I think, wow, that's ridiculous. Like the example this year was I set 100 miles when I finished Enduro last year.
Yep.
And I thought that was a 3-year goal.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But all I did was work towards, everything I'm doing for the next little while is working towards giving myself a shot at 100 miles, and then it happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I didn't know if it was possible. I didn't know, like that, anything like that. I was just like, I'm just going to set that as my goal, and I kept quiet about it.
Yep.
Like I told just a few people, and then, just started chipping away. So set goals, and then obviously like other short-term goals as well.
Yep.
But just set something huge that you think, wow, that would be absolutely amazing if I achieve it, and then just chip away at it.
Yeah.
So that would be number one. And number two is like, just connect with people. Like the OCR community's amazing. Like people like yourself, people, other elite guys out there, or, just general volunteers on the course. Like people have a wealth of experience you can tap into. Like I'm more than happy to help anyone out.
Yep.
Like one of the guys that raced last weekend, he'd never done an enduro or anything long before, and he messaged me and he's like, mate, I'm thinking about Toughest Mudder, what do you think? I was like, yeah, do it. I'll send you my plan. I'll tell you this, I'll tell you that. And he ended up knocking out 5 laps.
Yeah,
and was
awesome.
Like, you know what I mean? So, there's a wealth of information out there, and just tap into the community because,
yep.
and I guess what you mentioned before with, something that keeps me pushing as well is other people in the community. Like it's a place everyone can belong. And that's what's so amazing about it too, I think.
Yeah, mate, I couldn't agree more. It's probably the most interesting mix of people I've ever seen. You've got young guys, and you've got people on the other end of that spectrum, and they all just have their own story, and they've all come into this sport which is so much about overcoming your own adversity. So it's
Absolutely.
Mate, absolutely amazing, and a great group of people. So, man, thanks for all your time today. I don't have any more questions, but I'll see you at Bright. I'll be there running the ultra as well. Well, I'll probably be doing a little bit more walking in the ultra. You'll be running, so I'll say good day when you go past. But mate, thanks for your time, and keep doing what you do, man.
No worries. My pleasure.
Awesome, bud.
Catch up.
See you, man.